Hi there. In this video, I'm going to discuss an overview of the user-centered audit and recommendations for the student forms page and forms from the registrar's office at the University of New Mexico. Why did I choose this site? Communicating with the registrar's office via the student forms page and forms can be crucial to a student's success at UNM, especially where degree completion and graduation are concerned. Based on my initial assessment, given the high stakes of the tasks to be completed, the page and the form completion process were not optimized to help students successfully solve the problems they visited the site to address. About the audience. Briefly, the primary audience for the page and forms is UNM students. A secondary audience is what I'm calling helpers, which comprises the group of people who might assist students encountering difficulties with the forms, student advisors and other UNM staff and faculty, and family members and friends of students. UNM's Office of Institutional Analytics provides a little bit of data about the student body for the 2024-25 academic year. Here we can see a chart showing program enrollment and another chart which shows ethnicity categories. This data doesn't help define our audience as much as it reinforces the impression that it encompasses quite a broad range. Therefore, the recommendations should target the most basic level of usability, which will support novices as well as seasoned users to complete their tasks successfully. Let's take a look at the site itself. The layout of the landing page is fairly clear, using a table to display a list of forms with corresponding options. That's where the simplicity ends, however. The form names are not intuitive, and users wondered why some forms had multiple options and others did not. The site is also not mobile friendly. When I resize the window to simulate a mobile screen size, you can see that the right-hand side of the table, which includes the links to the online and PDF versions of the forms, is cut off. And when we scroll horizontally, which is not optimal on a mobile device, the background has turned red for these columns, and the links are hidden unless you can hover, which you can't on a mobile device. So that is quite a problem. Clicking on the instructions links takes the user to UNM's student info site, opening in the same window, which requires the user to click the back button to return to the forms page. Clicking the online option opens an intermediate screen with a set of instructions in a new tab. This could be useful for students who need to click between tabs to refer to the instructions. However, it could confuse users who expect to be able to use the back button to access the previous page. When we click on the form button, the online version of the form opens, and it looks like it can be completed and submitted online. But we have to read further to note that we will need to attach a single PDF containing the form as well as supporting documents, which are not listed here. Since we have to open the PDF version of the form to complete the process, it's not clear what purpose this version serves, especially since there's an upload option on the landing page itself. Opening the PDF version of the form, we see another intermediate screen with a different set of instructions, including the information that we can't complete the process using a mobile device. The form opens according to the user's browser settings, and its layout suggests that it will need to be printed and completed by hand, given the old-fashioned boxes that letters and numbers need to be entered into separately. We also must scroll to the bottom of the second page to find the list of required documents. And on this page, we're also told where to bring the form in person. If we hadn't already looked at the online version, we might not realize there's an option to submit electronically. For the usability testing sessions, there were 3 participants, and their ages, one was in their 20s, one in their 30s, and one in their 70s. Their UNM affiliations, 2 were grad students, and 1 had no UNM affiliation. The test scenario and task were read aloud to the participants during the testing sessions, and they were given the option to view this information in writing as well. Participants were asked to rate the difficulty of completing the task, and all 3 rated the task as very difficult. They were also asked to rate their confidence in completing the task, and all 3 felt not at all confident in their ability to do so. I also rated the participants on whether or not they successfully completed the task, and 1 did successfully complete it. The other 2 did not. I asked the participants who they thought the target audience for the site was and what recommendations they had for improving the site. And we'll talk those over in just a moment. I also observed the obstacles that they encountered in locating the correct form to complete the task and whether they understood how to properly complete the form. Some observations from the participants. They felt that the amount of content on the page was overwhelming. There are so many forms and documents, it's taking me a couple of minutes just to read what they are. They felt that the presentation and explanations were incomplete or inconsistent. For example, when some of the forms had content in the online and PDF column and others did not, they weren't always sure what the differences meant. They found that some of the links do not work, and this was frustrating for them. They found that completing the task required additional resources. For example, if they were using a mobile device, they would need to go and find a computer, and they also would need a separate app to combine the form and their supporting documents into a single PDF. The participants did not feel confident about completing the task, and their experiences with the site raised questions about the institution's reliability and intentions. When I asked them, all participants correctly identified the audience as students or UNM students, but they struggled to identify the correct form to use to complete the task. Some recommendations. The form and the landing page needs to be mobile responsive. You can see in these screenshots, as we saw in the site walkthrough, that the right side of the page was cut off on my Samsung Galaxy and would require horizontal scrolling, which is definitely not ideal, as the user might not even realize there's additional information to the right. In general, the form should be described in simple, friendly, and action-oriented language. Using tables for page layout is deprecated. The layout needs to be created with code that is accessible and responsive for mobile devices. And I recommended moving the official form name to the title tag so it's visible on hover. And I have a prototype where I can show you a little bit about what that might look like. So here I have changed from using a table to using a card layout, and I have changed the names of the forms to be simpler and more descriptive of the action that's going to happen when the user clicks on them. You can see when I hover that the official name of the form does pop up for users like student advisors who might be looking for a form based on the official name. They would still be able to find it, but it would not be cluttering up the screen or otherwise confusing the users. And this layout is mobile friendly. I would also order the forms in the list by how often they're used. So the most used forms would be at the top of the list, and it would descend from there. It's also important to ensure that all the links work and that they open in the same window or a different one consistently, not some opening in a new window and others not. The links to the student info instructions should be placed on the forms instead of on the main page. That would also help to reduce the visual clutter. All of the forms should be able to be filled out online if possible, both because PDFs can present accessibility problems and because, as we learned, the PDF forms process cannot be completed on a mobile device. It would be great to allow uploading of multiple documents rather than having to combine the documents into one PDF, and helpful, especially for mobile users, to be able to attach a photo of their ID instead of a scan or having to bring the documents in person. Regarding the intermediate screens containing form instructions, are these screens and information truly necessary? If they are, and if the instructions are standard for all the forms, the instructions should be included on the main forms page one time. If the instructions differ based on the form, the instructions should be included on the form itself, and they should be located at the step of the process where they apply, not in a chunk that the user has to remember or switch back and forth between tabs to verify. Instructions that can be handled better by technical means should be removed. For example, the instruction to wait after clicking the submit button should be changed to the use of a progress bar or a spinner that would let the user know that the submission process was underway and continuing. One of the test participants suggested that the landing page could include a brief instruction video, which I think is a great idea. I also identified a few possible obstacles to implementation of these recommendations within the institution. And of course, always cost is a factor. In this case, staff time would need to be dedicated to redesigning and reprogramming these pages and forms. The need for security and verifying identity for these official records changes would need to be handled both securely and efficiently, and that could take some determination. We would need to address the difficulty of handling and processing multiple documents, and that's likely why users are currently being asked to combine documents into one PDF so that they're not separated or lost. There's certainly going to be difficulty integrating information entered into online forms with other enterprise systems like Banner. And we would need to consider the needs of other stakeholders like student advisors, faculty members, or the staff in the registrar's office. There's probably business processes going on behind the scenes that we're not aware of with just our front end page and process experience. So there you have it. Thank you so much for watching.